Today we're going to talk about men who cheat. Now, women certainly do cheat as well, but today we're going to focus on men who cheat and why that happens and how we typically respond to them. You know, the first thing that we typically do when we find out that a man has cheated, whether you're the one who's been betrayed or you're someone who's trying to help a couple recover from infidelity. And that first step is very often to try to control the man.
Hello, I'm Dr. Debbie, and I've been helping men, women, and couples grow together for more than 25 years. Now it's your turn to learn what I learned and taught as a couples counselor and university professor. You are the wise woman, and this is your personal development podcast packed with instant encouragement and practical tips. And men can learn about women too, because this is a safe place where women are valued and men are respected. We talk about biology, socialization, behavior, emotions, communication, and connection, because men and women are different. Always have been, always will be, and that's a very good thing.
I remember one woman in particular when she talked about her husband's unfaithfulness years later. She said, I should have just kept him under control better. I'm like, ladies, that's not going to work. You cannot make a man be faithful. You also can't make him be unfaithful, which is a whole nother issue that some women get into with themselves, is that somehow it's their fault. It's a defect inside the woman that causes the man to cheat. And that just isn't true. There's nothing you can do that can make a man love you or not love you. It's totally his choice. And trying to keep him under control is not going to work either. You know, another thing that people will talk about when it comes to infidelity is they'll talk about accountability. And accountability is like sending the police on him. That doesn't work either. It has to come from within him. It has to be, again, his decision. Now, I have never met a man so far who was unfaithful to his wife who didn't have some sort of an unmet emotional need that he didn't know how to ask for. And, you know, it's just been across the board. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell what that is because men don't often talk about their feelings and what they need from us. It doesn't take a lot of detective work to figure out what's been missing in the relationship. And I have a few exercises that I can take people through to help them discover that. But honestly, one conversation with a guy without his wife, and I can pretty much tell you what's been missing. You know, several years ago, a gentleman contacted me on my website, and he was a friend of a former client. And the former client had referred him to me because this man had a message that he wanted to get out to all the other men. And his message was this: don't cheat on your wife. You're going to ruin your career. You're going to lose your children. You're going to lose your home. You're going to lose everything that you worked so hard for. Don't cheat. Don't do it, man. No matter how great it sounds, do not cheat. The cost is too high. And I listened to him talk for a few minutes, and then I asked him a question. I said, if someone would have told you all of those things that happened to you when you cheated, if they'd have told you those things before the fact, would it have made a difference? And he thought for a second. He goes, no, probably not. It's like, that is not the issue. It isn't that men need to be told what they're going to lose. They're willing to risk losing something because they've already missed out on something. Now, I know before you get upset with me, you got to hear me out. Men need to be, they need to have their wife's attention. They need to have her affection, her appreciation, and her approval even, as well as her admiration. And if any of those things are missing, he probably isn't going to tell you. Instead, he's just going to walk around feeling miserable, and somebody's going to come along that's going to automatically meet those needs. And the number one thing that women often do when they see a man who's obviously unhappy, even if he's married, is that we start to give him attention. And as we give him attention, he's drawn to that place where he gets that emotional need met. And if it goes on long enough, next thing you know, then it's turned into an affair. I've heard that story many, many times. And I remember one gentleman who was an older gentleman I think he was in his mid to late 50s at the time. And he had always been faithful to his wife, and yet he cheated on her. And they came in, and no one could understand. His wife couldn't understand why he did it, and he couldn't understand why he did it. But as we talked, the story came out that he had, I think, 3 or 4 daughters, and he was constantly trying to take care of his wife and his daughters. He wanted them to have a good life. And in the process, his own emotional needs were totally unmet. He never asked for anything. He went to work, he came home, he attended to them, and he was emotionally starved himself. Now, he cheated not to have relationship, but this particular man, the way that he cheated, it was an escape for him. It was a fantasy for him, which is what pornography is for an awful lot of men. It's an escape. It's a temporary fantasy that takes them out of the pain of the moment. And I got to tell you, though, what this gentleman shared with me and with his wife was that after he had cheated, he actually felt worse than he did before he cheated. Now, that's one particular type of cheating, but there are others. And sometimes, most often, I think it's the emotional kind of cheating, where, as I mentioned before, there's someone who is meeting an emotional need, such as attention or affection or appreciation or approval, any of those things, and he finds himself drawn to this woman over and over again until he realizes he's gotten in too far. He just want to let go of it. So honestly, I hate divorce. I've been through it myself. It's the worst in the world. I mean, it's right there in the top 3 horrible things that can happen to you, the worst stressors that a family can go through. And I don't want anybody to go through that. And if you've been divorced, please know I understand 100% how hard it is to work on a marriage when 2 people don't want to. And that's why I really focus on helping men and women have communications with one another that talk about those deep needs. Now, it's much easier at some level for women to do that than for men. I have to tell you, lots of times what women will talk about more readily is how much they need help around the house, how much they need help with the kids, but very little about their emotional needs and what it really means in a practical way that a man can actually understand. It's very hard for her to articulate that. It's hard for a woman. It's so much harder for a man, because the number one rule of being a man is don't be vulnerable. Don't be weak. That makes you into a girl, so to speak. And so you don't ever want to do that. And honestly, a lot of men who do ask for their needs to be met get called sissies, or I've even seen women laugh at men in my office, in front of my face. I'm watching this unfold, and I'm seeing her actually belittle him for him talking about his pain, talking about his hurt, talking about what he needs. So it's a really tricky situation, and I always am able to do a better job if I can get the woman to listen in a different way. That's really what this is all about. What are men about? Why do they do the things they do? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they not saying that would make all the difference in the world in the relationship? It is the one thing that will keep your marriage safe and solid, is when you truly understand one another's hopes and fears, and you feel safe in that situation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Wise Woman's Guide to Men and Marriage. What did you think? Did the information raise more questions? Do you want to learn more? Head over to A Wise Woman's Guide for show notes and links to the resources mentioned in this episode at awisewomensguide.com.